I did see this. I'm talking about this probably on Monday. I started working on it with my Marketing Monday researcher today. Long story short, the FTC said a bunch of things would happen when they sued Microsoft to stop them from buying Activision Blizzard. They're like, hey, if Microsoft wins this case, they're going to start raising prices. They're going to use their monopoly power over developers, et cetera, et cetera. And then Microsoft was like, nah, they won't happen. And then now those things are happening. And the FTC's like, they're petitioning the judge. They're like, hey, it did happen. They said they weren't going to do these things. Now they're raising prices. Now they're splitting off Call of Duty into its own tier of like they're doing what we said that would happen. And so we'll see if anything comes from it. Feels like it's already settled. Like once the merger goes through, acquisition goes through. Bethesda unionized. That was a big piece of news. Their entire company, top to bottom, not just the QA testers, everybody did a full unionization. And Microsoft had to recognize the union. Wall to wall. That is badass. I think Microsoft is like probably pretty annoyed because they're getting this CrowdStrike problem. They're getting heat for that. They spent all of this money to acquire ZeniMax, which is owner of Bethesda, and then they're unionizing, not happy with the conditions. And they spent all this money to acquire Activision Blizzard, and that's not really working out right now. And they're getting sued again by the FTC. It is clear that every worker can benefit from bringing democracy to the workplace and securing a protected voice on the job. We're thrilled to get down to brass tacks and win a fair contract, proving that our unity is a real source of power to positively shape our working conditions, our lives, and the company as a whole. You know what's funny is, so union membership has not grown too dramatically. We had a hot labor summer in 2023, a lot of union action, but membership hasn't grown that dramatically. But the number of Americans who are now, quote, union curious, it's kind of like being bi-curious, but I guess less sexual, is way up. People used to have like a negative opinion of unions. Now they're like, wait a minute, they're thinking about it. So maybe it's going to take a little bit. I think it's going to happen after unemployment rises and conditions start dropping and wages start, like once we get into a 25 era. But I think people might start realizing why unions are good, why it helps, why it's hard to negotiate alone against the adverse employer, and why having people with you gives you more power and more leverage. Why does it help? It's really simple. Like imagine you work in a factory, okay? And there is something unsafe about your job, something unsafe, whatever it is. There's fire too close to your face, whatever it is. And then you complain to the boss and he says, fuck you, quit. If you quit, he replaces you with someone else, not a big deal. If everybody on the line all goes together and says, hey, fix this or we quit, suddenly it's like, oh, if you quit, we lose all our money. Do you understand? You all could do it individually. A union is just you guys doing it at the same time. There's something different about it. Do you believe there's any negative consequences from unionizing? I think every single choice you'll ever make for the rest of your life will have some positive and some negative consequences, even if the negative ones are small. Every single thing in planet Earth will have some. So you have to learn in real life to be a real adult, to make judgment calls and weigh the good against the bad. And if you are incapable of doing that, then you are a politician's speech. You will be locked in anxiety and will never be able to progress on anything. That is how it works. There of course is some negative repercussions, but overall, on the whole, unions benefit the worker. They are a net gain. My dad was in an airline pilot union. It was terribly corrupt and allowed their pensions to be taken away after 9/11. It's funny. I'm sorry to laugh at a 9/11 thing, but it's funny that you saw that and you're like, that's the unions. That the union did that. The union allowed it to be taken away. Who is trying to take it away? The company is trying to take away the pension. The fact that the union wasn't strong enough to prevent it, you're blaming the union? Won't a union just the poor, hardworking bosses? I feel like you skipped a joke in the middle. You want me to finish it for you? I think you want the word like hurt. It's like, won't a union just hurt the poor, hardworking bosses? And then we all go, oh yeah, the bosses. It's the bosses. We work together. It's a teamwork. It's teamwork makes the dream work. Didn't that pro-union guy at the RNC get his union speech? The head of the Teamsters? That would really surprise me. Sean O'Brien did not get kicked out of the Teamsters. He's speaking of the DNC as well. I think the Teamsters fucking hate him from that. I mean, my understanding is the opposite, which is that Joe Biden has been much more pro-union than Trump. And so like the union management prefers Biden, but the average rank and file blue collar worker in the Teamsters just likes Trump, just based on demographics and odds. Like they don't even know about the negotiations or what Biden has supported, which they just like Trump. So that's why a speech at the RNC. I didn't mind it. I know it's unpopular, I guess, but I don't think him speaking at the RNC was bad. I think his speech, I'm glad people at the RNC could hear his speech. His speech was literally about how like big corporations are sucking our country dry. We basically have socialism for the rich and hard scrabble do-it-yourself for the poor. His speech was like, it was a good message, and I think that audience needed to hear it. I have no problem with him speaking. He was getting shit because he was signaling he wasn't going to speak at DNC. My understanding is he is speaking at DNC. Did that change? Is Sean O'Brien speaking at the DNC? I can't get an answer. I guess they haven't announced who's speaking. Yeah, I'm still getting the 2020 schedule. Maybe it's not announced yet. I guess we'll have to see. Shouldn't it be illegal to bet on American elections? You are technically part of the decision making. It's as if an athlete. It's not as if an athlete was betting on their game. It is a little bit different when you are 1/300 millionth of the outcome. It's not like you can take the under on Biden and then vote for him and then turn the tides. Can someone on the Electoral College vote on it? I mean, I guess if you were responsible for the Electoral College votes in like Pennsylvania and you could defy the will of the popular vote, make a huge bet on the underdog party and then give them their... I guess. I mean, if Joe Biden voted on it, or like, what if Trump voted on Biden and then dropped out? He could make billions. That could definitely work. What do you suppose France could do their massive debts? I mean, every country's got big debts. France's is pretty bad. The thing with France is like, they don't have the option of printing their own money out of it, which is what the US can do and the Japan can do. Because France is part of the European Union, they have to be told by people in Brussels that, hey, you have to get your budget in order. And it's hard to get their budget in order because they already spend more than they make and they can't seem to politically raise taxes. They're just infighting a lot. Isn't printing money bad? No, it is bad, but it's just a release valve when you are in deep debt. Right now, France is in deep debt and they have to borrow just to survive their government every year, like to pay for things that are already normal functioning of the system costs more than they make from tax revenue. So they have to borrow money. To get their books in order, they have to either raise taxes or cut spending, and both are really hard politically. If you cut spending, everyone gets mad at you, votes you out of power. If you raise taxes, everyone gets mad at you, votes you out of power. If you do neither, you can't afford anything, shit starts to collapse, people vote you out of power. Do you understand? It's a triple threat. There's no, when you're at the end of a debt cycle, there's only bad options, and then the world starts to get all panicky. That's what's happening all over the world, bro. We're at the end of a debt cycle. Printing money is just actually less politically divisive because it affects them. Yeah, this is true, but now they do, sort of. Like, this is what worked for a long time when things were naturally getting cheaper. We kind of had natural deflation from things exporting to China, etc., for 20 years. And so we could print a little bit more. But now when we print, we get inflation almost instantly. Now they sort of understand how bad inflation can be, and they're baking it into their expectations for the future. So inflation is much scarier now. And then when they print like crazy, it's like going to have real instant, immediate bad effects. What's stopping from not paying their debt? I want to make a video on this because it's the most common question I get. But the real simple answer is there's a lot of bad effects, but the simple answer is they can't get debt again. That's the problem. It's like a credit score, man. It's like if you stop paying your credit card, they're not going to murder you. They might try to garnish your wages. They might, but whatever. At the end of the day, the hard thing is your credit score goes to zero and you can't get any more debt. And so if you're a country that already can't, afford your year to year, and then you burn your debtors, so no one will buy your debt anymore, no one will buy your bonds, then you're fucked. Then you could become like, one of the third world countries that can barely borrow from the IMF. You just can't get money. And it can be really dangerous when like something like COVID happens and you need money and you can't get it as a country. It's like the last resort. What happens at the end of the debt cycle? Well, you might not love this answer. There's 4 turnings. At the end of the 4th one, the end of the debt cycle, political unrest, wars, regime change, isolationism, protectionism, tariffs. And then after that, usually you get a really nice golden age, a nice growth cycle. You get really good people in power. It's good, but there's like a real tumultuous period in the middle. Is that a science fiction novel? Yeah, I bet you're wishing it was, but no, it's not. It's actually a more boring historical novel. Good people in power. It's sci-fi, bro. You think we've never had a good leader ever? People Sneep. It's funny because like people call me a doomer, but some people are so much more doomer. I feel like I'm actually an optimist with just some realism thrown in. People are like, there's never, ever, ever been a good leader. human beings have always suffered and they will always suffer. There will never be. Nothing's ever gotten better.